Good morning, everybody. We're just going to wait for 1 minute to see if we get some stragglers coming in. It is just 10:01, so it's not like we're lagging far behind, and then we will kick the session off. But thank you for coming out this morning and joining us. And I hope that you're getting at least a little bit of sunshine as we started to get yesterday. All right, we might make a start, Lisa. I think it's just ticked over into 10:02. So I'd like to begin by saying good morning and welcome everybody to another Teaching Academy professional development event. This morning's session is about the exams process in Brightspace. We've moved across, obviously, in not really recent times. We're now almost 2 years into between piloting and rollout and production into using Brightspace. But we have a session today about exams and the exams process. And we're joined by Lisa Griffin, the manager of the exams and results team, who's going to be running this session. So take it away, Lisa, and I will be staying silent in the chat unless people have questions coming your way. Thanks very
Beautiful.
much.
Thank you very much, Lachlan. And thank you all for coming. It's a great opportunity for us to share what we do in that exam space, and it's quite a topical area at this stage. I'm just going to share my screen. And it's not death by PowerPoint. And just to show how fancy I got, I can actually make those numbers move. Me and Copilot. Copilot is my assistant now. So as I said, welcome. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all. I'm in Wagga Wagga. On Wiradjuri country. So on behalf of the Wiradjuri people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather here in Wagga Wagga, I extend a warm welcome to everyone present. And the sun is out here, but there's cloud cover coming over. We pay our respects to elders past and present who have cared for this land for countless generations. We acknowledge the deep spiritual connection the Wiradjuri people have to this country, to the rivers, the hills, the sky, and all living things. May we walk together in harmony, listen deeply, and continue to learn from the wisdom of the first peoples of this land. So welcome to Wiradjuri country and not quite so sunny Wagga Wagga. What we're covering today, we'll be looking at our timeline. Exams and my team run very much on a timeline. We're very timeline based, so I'll give you some insight into the timeline and why we run by a timeline. The exam types that we currently manage, the exam request process, the QA processes we do in the background, not just with the requests, but subject outline QAs and a touch on the exam QA that we do as well. The release of the final timetable, which is a point in time for us, because once that's released, that's when we start to do setup, exam setup and exam scheduling. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to stick your hand up and I will answer them if I can. So timeline. And I'll focus on end of session exams. So for end of session exams, we do micro session, end of session exams. So there are 6 micro sessions a year. We do end of session exams for 30, 60, 90. And we also run DX and AE exams in 30, 60 and 90, which run week 3 of the next session. Very, very tight timeline on that DX AE, as I'm sure you're all aware. So we run on a very strict timeline with those. The exam request portal will open the first day of session for 30, 60 and 90, same with the micros. We send an email out to the faculties, the schools, the subjects teams to share with you all. And we also put it on What's New as well. And we'll keep putting it up on What's New. It's currently up there at the moment obviously for the 60 session. Prior to the deadline for the exam request, we send out a reminder, and that's around week 5 in the session. So there's about 5 weeks for you to get those exam requests in. We do extend that. We have that ability at that point to keep extending it out, but we will send reminders. A draft timetable is released for staff around week 6. Now, this is your opportunity to come back to us if we've missed anything. And when we go through the exam requests, you can give us scheduling tips if you want your exam scheduled in particular weeks' times. And if we can do it, we will. But once we release that draft timetable, and it's only to staff, students are not seeing that timetable at this point in time, that's your opportunity to come back to us. Come back to exams at csu.edu.au, and let us know if you need anything changed or altered, or especially if your exam's not in there, which means we haven't received an exam request and we've still got potential to put it in there. The exam links and papers are due around week 9, so there's a little bit more time for those to get in. And again, we will come chasing. If we've got an exam request in, once we start to look at setup, we'll come and email out to you and say we need your exam, either your link or your paper file upload. Final timetable is released to staff and students around week 10. Once that's released to students, we try not to make any changes unless they're forced ones. Some of the changes we will get is students in other time zones. We don't necessarily pick them up, and it's not always accurate, the address we have for students. So if they're in a different time zone, we've got the capability of setting them at a different time. It's a little bit more complex if it's a supervised exam, but we can do that. However, since moving to the majority of the exams being online and the flexibility that students have to sit, we don't see as many changes anymore, and we certainly do not see as many deferred exams. Because students are able to work in sitting their exam with their either work or family commitments. Once we release that final timetable, we go into the exam QA and setup commences, and we'll go through all of this in more depth. The deadline for late changes to the timetable, we like to stop at about 2 weeks out from exams, because by that point in time, we're starting to create attendance registers for supervised exams, and we need to lock down the student enrolments and the dates and times for those exams. And then the students, the week prior, get a get ready for your email, for your exams email that's sent out to students, just to remind them that, hey, next week you have exams. So that's a high level of our timeline. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on behind that, but that's basically the timeline that we like to stick to as much as possible. Okay, so the types of exams that we currently see in Brightspace, there's 2 types. There's an assignment type, and I'll show you these as well. And there's the quiz type. I'm sure you're all familiar with these because you are currently in Brightspace. The assignment exam is a file download, and that's where we ask for the file to be uploaded. We supply a Word doc, an answer file as well for the students. And they're suitable for time-constrained window or supervised online exams. Because they don't have an inbuilt timer, we can't set them as in a window but not time constrained. We need to set times on it. They actually don't have their own timer. One of the pain points with the assignment exams, and this is coming directly from the students, because during exam sessions, we actually have an option on the 1-800 number to press 0 for exam help. So we get the students coming to us during the exam periods as well. So we're pretty much on top of the issues they have. Students struggle with scanning and uploading. And when we go into Brightspace, I'll show you something we've put into our exam widgets to assist the students, but they really do struggle with scanning a whole exam and uploading it if that's what they need to do. Students downloading the exam file, that's an issue. They keep that file. I'm not sure if people are aware. And we're really pointing now to, if we can get those exams in quizzes, it's a better way, because once that student downloads the exam file, we've got no way of getting that back. There's no randomisation of questions. I think that's a real strength in the quizzes area. It's manual marking. And as I said, those exams don't have timers. Yes, Lachlan.
Sorry, I'm going to be the annoying person in the front
You'd
row.
be the annoying person.
First thing that pops into mind is the Turnitin integration built into the assignment portals. And one of the reasons people want to use that tool set is so they get those checks happening. Is it, in your experience, how do you see that playing out when they're using the quiz tool to submit text responses at length?
At the moment, that function's not there. And with Turnitin, only law use it at the moment. We see a lot of business subjects using it, but they're using the assignment type because they want the student to display working out and then upload the working out. But with the quiz function, you can have a question where you can actually upload just that file to just that particular question. So it'd be really great, I think, to have a look at a deeper dig to go, why are people using that assignment type? And absolutely, if it's law, and it goes through Turnitin, the actual submission is nice and easy. If they keep it on their document, they don't have to do any workings out and upload. It's very smooth. And law, as I said, use that all the time.
So we're talking maths and sort
talking
of
ones that have working out.
engineering things. Okay.
Yeah. And those students can. It's not, look, we're working with them and we've got a lot more educated about how to assist the students with the scanning element, but it can be a pain point at the end of the exam if they have a lot of workings out and they've written their answers, which some students prefer to do. So it's just, when I say pain points, we work with them, but they're just some things we see. With the quizzes, they can be online, supervised or not supervised, and they can be also BYOD, which is the bring your own device. So those exams are suitable for cohorts that are all on campus, and they sit the exam on their own laptop. It has an inbuilt timer and they auto submit at the end. They have self-marking components. The randomisation of questions, I think, is a real strength in these quizzes. You can randomise your short answer, you can randomise your multiple choice. It means that the students sitting next to each other, if they're near it, they're not getting the same questions, or even if they're talking to each other, they're not getting the same questions. They're getting a very different version. And more question options. There's a lot of different options in there for different types of questions. I think we have another hand up, Lachlan.
Hi,
Yeah,
how are you?
Mohammed. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, how are you? Thank you. Just a question about the quizzes online. Does it need to be in the examination period or can be like, for example, a period start from the week 12 of the session?
Unless if you don't want to run an end of session exam, are you saying it's an end of session but you need to run it earlier?
Yes. So instead of the examination period, to avoid them to have too many exams in 1 week, since many of them they will be online, and let's say they have a 1 week to attempt, but there's a 2 hours spot for that, but they may have other exams as well with the same conditions. So how do we work with that? It could confuse them.
I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you when we go to the
Thank you.
exam request. There's an option there in some notes where you can pop that in there. And it's not uncommon. Medicine don't always align with our end of session exam period, but they are end of session exams. So what we can do in EMS is extend those dates out. And we do run some last week of session as well because of that, because students might be going out on prac or, you're worried about clashes. But when we schedule, we ensure that we actually work on one exam a day. We try to even avoid 2 exams in the one day for students unless it's absolutely unpreventable. So we space them out, and that's part of our timetabling to make sure that the load is spread across for the students so they're not having clashes. And that's one of the benefits of popping in that exam request and getting us to timetable it. It means your students won't clash with other subjects. But we can take requests within reason around that exam period to run them either before or after if there's a reason. But I'll show you that. The pain points we have, and I'll show you with these, is sometimes the questions are set up incorrectly. And when we go in and have a look, I'll show you a couple of tips on just some things that get missed sometimes in setting up those questions. And of course, they're online. It can be internet. Like, we have never had a massive disruption, but boy, these students are very good at hotspotting to their phones too, if they need to. So there's options with these. So that's just an example of the types of exams that we're currently running. Okay, the exam requests. So we open up our exam requests, and I will bring this over. And Paul, you're probably very familiar with. We will have a number running at the same time. The DXAEs have just finished. We've got the micro session with the exam timetable coming out, and at the moment we've got session 260. I want me to log in again. This is about to go to single sign-on too. Put it back. It doesn't like you going back. Oh, don't you love it when it doesn't work for you? Okay. Not sure what that's doing. I'll try again. Anyway, we open it up. You go into your particular session, and the exam types we offer, and you need to select at the top level: online, assignment, school run, on campus. I'm just going to put it over here and see if I can get it back again. We ask you to put in the reading time and your technology allowance. So, and you can have 15 or 30 minutes. We really recommend not using the 30-minute tech allowance. It's a lot of time for a student. And I know there was a preference with the assignment exams previously when they had to be uploaded into EAST to give the students that 30-minute technology allowance. I can tell you now, hand on heart, they don't need it. With the scanning, if they've got their 15-minute technology allowance plus the 10-minute reading time, that's 25 minutes. that is adequate. I also look at that 30 minutes as that's an extra 30 minutes they've got time to go looking for answers, etc. So highly recommend, and we're going to see if we can actually get rid of it now. We just don't need it with Brightspace. That amount of tech allowance, it's too long. So if you are giving them, and tech allowance is optional too. You can just give them the reading time, the 10 minutes, and no tech allowance. We are very capable, if something goes wrong with an exam, of actually adding the tech allowance on there for the students as well. So we can actually go in and give them time if there is a genuine reason as to why they need that extra time. And now I have the exam request portal up. So that's what it looks like when you go into your particular school. You find your particular subject. If your subject's not appearing, send us an email at exams and we will pop your subject in there. Here's the options. These ones haven't had the exam request in yet. This one has the exam request in. Talking about the exam request, there's the option. So it's online, assignment time limited, school run, assignment non-time limited, on-campus paper, on-campus BYOD. And as I was running through, we ask for this information. It will automatically feed your students in there. Here's your duration, 10 minutes or 25. We don't put the 30 up there. You can ask for it on the assignment exam, but it's just not needed on an online Brightspace exam. We require your writing time, whether it's supervised or unsupervised, closed or open book. That's for a window exam. Backtracking. Is backtracking permitted? I think there's a line of thought there with backtracking that will stop students from cheating if you force them to move through their exam, but it actually causes a lot of stress for students because it's a legacy from paper exams. They have a 10-minute reading time. So what some students do like to do is go through their online exam and go question by question and have a look. And if backtracking is not permitted, they get stuck and they can't go back. So it's something to be mindful of. And if you are not permitting backtracking, it needs to be communicated very clearly to the students because we have a number of them get caught. We recommend don't prevent backtracking. Again, it's up to you. Copy and paste. We actually put some code into these exams and generally copy and paste is not allowed. So we actually put some code in there that prevents students so they can't copy and paste into these online exams unless there's a minute amount of exams where copy paste is allowed. We don't put the code in, but we prevent them from copy and pasting. Then you need to let us know what materials students are allowed to, if there's anything special they need, and scheduling. And this is where you can tell us that you want that exam to run at a different date and time if needed to, or in week 1 or week 2 or in an afternoon. And as I said, we will do anything we can to meet your request. Sometimes it's not possible, but generally we can meet it. So you can pop it in there and let us know.
Lisa, we've just got a question from Ali Ritchie on the floor.
Yep.
Hi, thanks, Lisa. Just a question about the copy and paste. Does that code only prevent within the Brightspace exam itself, or does it prevent pasting from another window?
They can't, they can't copy and paste from anywhere and put it into the exam.
Okay.
So if they've got another tab open.
Yep.
And they're copying something, it just will not let you.
Great.
You can't paste anything into those exams. So we've tried and tested that one a number of times. We get caught sometimes. We put that on there and then we need to go and adjust something and it won't let us. So we've got to take it back off again. So yes, try it and test it. It just prevents all copy and paste. And it also blocks Grammarly as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And we do that automatically unless we're told not to. It's just part of our setup. Another question?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So my question is I tried to log in on the exam request and I found my username is not active.
That's okay. Will, after this, we need to get you added into EMS.
Yes, please. Yep. Thank you.
Not a problem. We've got to manually add academics. So when we get new academics, if you're not in there, if you can't log in, just send us a message or an email to exams@ and we will add you in. Yes, next question.
For the online exam, will students be allowed to run some codes, to install some software and run some tests and see the result and then answer question? Are they allowed to that?
If you want them to do that, yes, they can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And that's
thank you.
where we say other permitted materials or in those scheduling notes, just let us know that students are required to. We will check this back against, and I'll show against the subject outline as well. And quite often there's information in there where we go, okay, yeah, they're allowed to have this or have that. If it's a supervised exam, I'll show you the attendance register. We pop the information on there for our supervisors so they know that the supervisors are allowed to. So we take our cues completely from what you tell us that they can and can't do. If they can't touch anything, then that's what we'll run with. There's no permitted materials.
What's the last day to share those information with you? Should be included in subject outline, or we still have room to play afterward?
It should be in your subject outline because the students should know that should be part of it. But you can pop that into your exam request at any point in time while the exam request is still open.
Thank you.
So that's what the exam request looks like. And as I said, we've still got that open at the moment. So you pop that in. The assignment ones, the other ones, they just ask you questions that are related to that type of exam. It's all pretty much the same preface. So as I said, we ask for reading time, technology allowance, duration, supervised, unsupervised, closed open book, window exam. Do you want backtracking? Copy and paste, the exam materials allowed, and any scheduling requests that you might have around when you want your exam to run. Okay, so once we get those exam requests in, and the team have just started to do this now because we've got about 130 to 40 exam requests in for 60, we will go and check your exam request against your subject outline. So the team go into every subject outline for every exam request. And what we're looking for in here is to make sure that it aligns. So reading time is 10 minutes. Duration, 120 minutes. 15 minutes tech allowance. It's an online exam. It's in Brightspace and it's invigilated. So we're looking at that higher level. If you've got materials requested, we will go and do a check against the subject outline as well, just to make sure that the materials requested are what's in the subject outline. If we see any discrepancies at this point, and some of you may have got emails, we send out an email to say we've noticed that there's a difference. Do you want your exam request updated, or do you want your subject? Are you going to change your subject outline to align? So we make sure that what we're timetabling and delivering to the students is exactly what is in their subject outline, because that's the source for this information at this point in time. I think that may change to CDAP, but at this point in time, we do that double check. So we're in the background doing a number of checks as well, just to make sure that what we're going to schedule is what we're scheduling. At that same point in time, while we're getting in doing the subject outline checks, you'll start to notice that we put exam widgets in. Thank you, Kathleen. Yes, we do a lot of checks now in that background. Last thing we want is students to get an exam that they had no idea was coming, or mistakes happen. We're humans. We get mixed up with times, etc. So yeah, we thoroughly subject outline check every exam request. We put widgets in. Now these exam widgets are just basically locators for the exams. We have two that we use. We have an online one, and you will have in your subject site, you will see that they just magically appear around the time that we're starting to get ready to set up exams. And we have a deferred or additional exam. We never have both appearing at the same time. Once we've run online exams, if there are deferred or additional exams to be run in that subject site, we'll hide this one so as not to confuse the students. And we do move them up in the left hand, up towards the top, so the students can easily find their exams. And that's one question we don't get anymore. We used to get it quite a bit in Blackboard. Students calling in on the day of their exam going, where's my exam? They couldn't find it. So one of the really big pluses with Brightspace is students have no problem locating those exams. We have extra information in there as well. So when we go in to put the exams, those widgets in there, I'll just finish off on the timetable first, and then we'll go to an actual site. The final exam timetable, we release it week 10 to students. This is when we really like to have all changes in, and we really don't like to change anything else, because once that goes out to students, we start to set up the exams. So we start to schedule them in Brightspace, but we're also doing attendance registers, and we're also allocating students into their, if it's supervised, into their online Zoom rooms. And the students get this information in their subject, in their timetable. So they get a link to their Brightspace, They have to navigate to their subject site. We don't go down to that level, but they get a direct link into their Zoom room that they've been allocated to as well. So we make it nice and easy for them. to get into their exam on the day. So if we look at a subject site, and I'm just going to go to bring this one over. I'm in QA.
Sorry, Lisa, can I
Yep.
just ask, you mentioned attendance registers that you were setting up.
Yep.
Where are they set up?
I will show you. I'm coming to them.
All right.
So
Okay. Sorry.
I'll do this, and then
Yep.
I'll show you the attendance registers. And yeah, they are a really useful tool for academics, and we're not sure that they're using them as much as we would recommend. So anyway, in the setup part, I'm in a QA site here. So this is just a dummy one. If I go to the top level there, that's what the widget looks like. So that's for an end of session one. When we schedule, we also put the date and time in the calendar as well, so the students can see that that's when their exam is. If I go into the widget, and I put the two different types of exams in here so I can show you what both of them look like when we set them up. In that widget, we have an academic integrity page, and that was written by Learning and Teaching. Do the students read it or not? I don't know, but we do have it there. And by simply going into their exam, they're actually declaring that they're going to obey the academic integrity rules listed there. Here's an addition we've put in, and we hide it if it's not necessarily. We've actually got now a document for students, how to scan a document using your phone if they do have an assignment exam, and that's helped massively. Most don't have a scanner at home anymore, so they are using their phone. So I can't take a whole lot of credit for it. Copilot wrote that for me. But we've popped that in there to help them. So we use these widgets to put information in here as well to help the students with anything we identify as being an issue for them. This is an online exam. So we will link the exam to that content widget. So we come in and do that. So we'll identify the exam. One of the tips with the exams is when we ask you to upload either the exam file or the URL, the URLs can be a bit, sometimes they take us to places we're not quite sure where we're meant to go. They might take us into just the quizzes in general. A really good tip is if you can label it with a bit of a format with your session first, subject code, and then end of session, or DXAE. It just makes it easier for us to identify. Sometimes we've got to go backwards and forwards a little bit with the academics because we want to ensure that we are using the correct exam. So I think we've got an example in the exam request when you go to upload. This is how we really love you to name your exam. So big tip there. It just makes it a lot easier for us if it's clearly labelled. It doesn't have to necessarily be that format, but just as long as we can pick it up as that's the end of session exam for that particular session, because there's quite a number of exams stacking up in those quiz areas now, and some have been copied across from Blackboard, and it's not always easy to tell which one we want. So when we come in, we've got the exam now, we've identified it. First thing we'll do is make sure that it's been added into Gradebook. And because it's an end of session exam, there'll be a column provisioned for it. So we will just go and link it to the provisioned column. Sometimes academics do that. That's fine. That's great. But if it isn't done, we will do that. And at the end of this, we go actually into where Gradebook is and we hide that grade column too. So we do that double check as well to make sure that's hidden, because otherwise if you've got multiple choice that's self-marking, as soon as the student submits, the students start to see their marks. And we don't want them to do that. So we make sure it's in Gradebook linked to the correct column. For the DXAEs, we provision a column in there because there's no existing column. Due date doesn't apply for an online exam. We actually pop a description in there with some instructions for the students. I haven't copied it into this one. Just some basic instructions about this is an online exam. It'll have a timer, etc. So they get some basic instructions there. We will do a quick check of, and this is a dummy exam, of the exam. We need to make sure, and this is a real tip, sometimes the multiple choice aren't linked to the question pool. So we always make sure now we know multiple choice, also in question library. We do a check here to make sure, and we can do a quick preview and have a look. We don't go right into this, and we're certainly not looking for content, but we will make sure that it is looking how it's meant to look. So there's a number of checks that we do. And we'll make sure that it looks reasonable, like if there's enough questions and answers. If anything looks a bit strange there, we will go back. But again, we're not looking at the content. We're looking at the presentation of the exam to make sure that it looks like it should and it saves phone calls on the day. Over here.
So not to state the obvious here, Lisa, sorry, but the expectation is that the academic will have established the question set in a quiz before they lodge the request.
Yep.
At which point, and identify that to you, and then your team will then customize that quiz as per your setup process.
We'll do a check. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. So that's why we have it staggered. So get the exam request in as soon as it's open, but you don't necessarily have to have your exam built at that point. We give you some more time into the session to build it. And then, as I said, when we get to about week 9, if we don't have that exam, we'll start reaching out to you to say, do you have your exam ready? Yes, Mohammed.
So do we develop 2 exams? One is the first one and the second one for students possibly apply with extension the same way, or?
Now, that is very good advice. Yes, with your deferred, when you write your exam, and if you're using really big question pools here, they're very easy to create multiple versions, and you'll get your technically exams are supposed to be, if you're reusing an exam, it's supposed to be at least 30% different from the original one. But if you're randomizing and using question pools, and if you've got 20 multiple choice pulling from 200 questions, you're going to hit that 30% difference all the time. But it's also really early and easy to then create the DXAE. So yeah, our best advice would be when you come in here and set up your end of session exam, I would build a second exam while you're in there. Then you've got it good to go. You know, you might not have any deferred students, but you might have some AEs. And quite often the deferred and the AEs sit that same exam. You really only do need the one exam. Deferred needs to sit pretty much the same structure with the same outcomes. Sometimes academics will vary with the AE and just give them a half-hour exam. You can vary it. But yes, best advice would be if you're in there building 1, build 2, and then it's just ready to go because it is such a tight turnaround with the DXAEs. So that's really good advice. So once we've got that end of session exam, we'll come in here. So we put a start date and an end date. Now, the start date and the end date is not the duration of the exam. It's the availability of the link for the students. And they're the dates that pop in the calendar. And we're going to do some work around explaining that a little bit better to the students, because we've had some students who look at their calendar and they go, and that's the actual start time. So that means that exam is not going to be visible to them till 11. But we leave the link available for a little bit of extra time, just in case they drop out of that exam and they need to get back in. So we give them a buffer of 30 minutes after the end of the exam time, but it's not the actual duration of the exam, it's the availability of that link. And we have had a few hiccups with Brightspace. It seems to be getting back on track now, where students were having some issues with it freezing. It was so random, not all students, very random, but they've still got that extra half an hour of availability of that link if they drop out. So that's what the availability dates are for. It's not the duration. We do add them to the calendar. And as I said, we're going to do some better comms around it for students. I'll skip special access for now. Timing and display, this is where we will come in and we will set the time limit, and there's the duration. And so that means that at 11 a.m., that exam will commence and the timer will tick for 60 minutes for those students, and they see that timer in the exam. We tend not to touch paging. Preference is 1 question per page, but if you've set it up with something else, we won't touch it unless it's going to break the exam. We don't touch any of these. These are all things that you look at. Attempts, always 1 attempt allowed. Going back up once we've done that and saved, manage special access. This is where we give the students that have study access plans their additional time. So we will come in here, search for the student, add their extra time on. So Jane has 15 minutes extra above the 60, calculates it out, and that will set that for that student. And when that student goes into their exam, it's really nice in Brightspace. It actually tells them this is your time. It didn't use Blackboard, didn't have that ability. All students look like they got 60 minutes, but it actually personalises. So they will go in and it'll tell them before they start their exam, you have 75 minutes to do it. So that's where we give them special access. When we're running the DXs and AEs, 2 secs, Lachlan. When we're running the DXs and AEs, we will use this option because we don't want the other students currently still with access to that subject site to have access to that DX or AE. So we use that one. So it's only then the users, and we add the students separately in there so that only the DXs and AEs can see those DX-AE exams. Yes, Lachlan.
Look, not to ask a problematic question, maybe just a comment at this point, but I note when we were talking about supervised assessment recently, where invigilated exams was flagged as one of the obvious forms of supervised assessment. what part of the commentary at that point was the requirement moving forward that we have resits or resubmissions as mandatory for those types of assessments, like moving into that space. So that number of attempts thing may very
change.
well be something that changes in the not too distant future. I just thought I'd mention that in light of that conversation the other day.
I wouldn't be surprised, Lachlan, if quite a few things change.
Mm.
We're well aware that this is very much a moving target at the moment, and there's potential for a lot of things to change. So that's basically the exam setup. Once we've put the timing on it, we will make it visible. You don't need to hide it. So when you first create your exam, absolutely hide it so the students can't see it. But we do notice, and we do a final QA every morning. Some academics, I think, get a bit nervous and they think, oh my God, the students can see the exam. They can see it's there, but they can't actually get to the exam because the exam won't release until 11 a.m. on the 5th. So we will do a double check. But yes, once we've scheduled it, you don't need to hide it. It can stay visible, as will the widget, and the students cannot get to that exam. For the other type, for the assignment one, just to give you just a quick look at it. They look like they're very basic. So again, we have information there for the students. There's the exam response file that we upload. It's simply a Word doc that has a prompt to put their student ID and name at the top of every page. And it's a question file. And the students, as I said, they download that and then work from there. And all the rest is pretty much the same. These have a due date because they don't have a timer. So if the students submit after 1:30, it'll be noted as late, but there's no inbuilt timer in these exams. Other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. And as Lachlan said, down the bottom here, we do this for law. We can add it to submit through Turnitin automatically when the student has completed the exam. So that's the plus. No use of text response option.
Sorry, so with the assignment submission types, if you go up to your submission tab on the right-hand side,
yep,
and open that up, you've got a file submission here and giving students a template to do. I was just thinking in terms of the quiz option where you had your copy-paste blocker put on and things, is that utilised with the text response option as well?
We can't put copy-paste on these exams because they're assignments, but we put it on the online exams. So do the online exams, the quizzes have the same option?
So when you're adding it on, you're adding in some code into the title of the task or the description to turn it on. Is that?
I'll show you an exam. I'll just go to 26. I'll get a live exam and I'll show you what the code. We put it into the editor box.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. In there. So.
We can come back to it if you like, Lisa. It's up to you.
So, yeah, what we do is, I don't know this one, it's an old exam, but we go in here into the editor part.
Yep.
And actually put some code that Sam Parker created. And we just embed it in there, and it will say in that text box, this is an old exam, as I said, it will say copy and paste not permitted. So that's the front text that displays, and behind that's code that prevents copy and pasting, but it goes in there.
Right. So code put into the description area impacts the actual response areas for the questions in the quiz.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Sam Parker's your expert on that, Lachlan.
Yeah, I'll hit up Sam. Sorry, Mohammed had a question, I think, even before me.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Thank you. No, that's fine. The question for formula sheets, like if I want to, for the quizzes exam,
Yep.
I want them to have X's all the time for the formula sheet because there will be different questions and all randomly coming to them. How that will be easy for them to be in one space, like,
What you
and
can
are they
do,
allowed to print that formula sheet, for example, during the online exam, and if they want to just look at it, or
Yep.
yeah, what is
Yep.
the
what we can do is, what some academics will do is they attach the formula sheet here, or, you know, we can make sure that the students have access to it. And in your short answers, with the written responses, and this is where these are really good. If you tick allow learners to insert images and add attachments, they can just add a file or upload something to that one particular question. So you could say, show me all your workings out for blah. And then they just upload that as part of that. We do find sometimes it's a little bit of a pain point. Sometimes the academics forget to tick that box, and we'll have students going, I'm supposed to upload a file, but we know how to fix that now. We're just going to tick that box. But yeah, you can do that as many questions as you want in there. And you can even pull them from a question pool as well and randomize them as well.
So where do you place the formula sheet? Like, for example, at the
You
beginning of the
could,
quiz or for each section?
yep, you could pop a link to it in there.
Okay, and then they can click on that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. But that will be under invigilation if they are accessing two screens or something. Is that allowed for them?
Yes,
Or
I'll show you. So you pop that in your request. You tell us what they're doing. They will access a formula
okay.
sheet, allowed two screens. That's fine. And I'll show you, I'm getting to the attendance registers. I'll show you what they look like, where we communicate with our supervisors to say this is what they're allowed to do. So there's a lot of options in these ones with creating lots of different types of questions in there, and file uploads as well. So it's not like Blackboard used to be where you couldn't have both, but these ones you can actually have file uploads within your online quizzes as well, if you want to. And it works seamlessly for the students. They don't seem to struggle if they've just got to scan in one document and upload it. It's when they're scanning in a number of documents. They have a problem with file size, all sorts of things. So it's a really nice way to get that information from them step by step. So that's the setting up of the exams and the different question types. As I said, format for just make sure the exam's labelled nice and clearly. Multiple choice tip, make sure the question pools are linked. Short answers, make sure you tick that box if you want attachments uploaded. And the scheduling. Once we've added a start and end time, you don't need to hide the exam. The students cannot see it. So online supervised exams, it's the hot topic at the moment. We don't currently have any type of software to lock students' computers down. Learning and teaching and looking at Respondus and a number of other things, and potentially ProctorU. There'll be lots of discussion around how we improve the integrity of these exams. But currently, what we do for the online supervised exams that you request, we create Zoom rooms, bulk Zoom rooms. We add our host and co-host, our supervisors, to those rooms. We limit of 23 students per room. We do that because Zoom defaults to 25 people on a screen. And unless you play with the settings, if there's more than that on the screen, they won't all display. So now we've reduced the number of students we put in that room. So it's 23 students with 2 supervisors. So everybody remains on that screen at all times. And we record those rooms. And those recordings are available to you. If you have any suspicions when you're marking and you'd like to have a look at the recording of the room, you just need to pop us an email and we can give you access to the recordings. They're stored in the cloud with Zoom. We keep them for a year. So there are recordings. Students must authenticate to enter the room, so they've got to come in through single sign-on. We give them instructions. A lot of them forget to do that. So they must come in and authenticate. When they come into the room, our host will put students into a breakout room one by one, and our co-host does a photo ID check, and they've scripted. No guests allowed. You can't get in unless you're an authenticated CSU student. Photo ID checks are done. They're not recorded due to privacy, but it's in that room where they do the photo ID. So they must have a student ID card, a passport, a license. They'll also be given instructions if it's open or closed book as to what they can and can't do in that exam. As I said, the rooms are recorded, and attendance registers. So I'll show you what these attendance registers look like. This is a blank template that we use. So our online supervisors have access to these while they're running the exams. We give them all the details of the exam type, the writing time, materials permitted. That's where we will tell them what they can and can't do, what school, open, close, the finish time. We try not to put we try to keep it subject by subject and not mix them up to make it simpler. And we certainly don't like putting open or closed book together. The attendance register, we fill all this information in. It comes out of EMS, our exams management system. So they've got a student ID, surname, first name, the exam code, campus the students studying that subject through, the room they're in. Sometimes, that it'll be fob jobs. We call them fob jobs or FOSH. They're funny names, but that's what they're called, the Zoom rooms. Whether it's open or closed book, and this is the part that the supervisors complete. So attended, yes or no. We really recommend we will send out an email at the beginning of the exam session saying this is the SharePoint folder where these attendance registers will be kept for the exam period. We really recommend that you jump in and have a look at these because you've got no way of telling if a student doesn't come into the Zoom room or not when you're marking, but you can on this because they'll be noted as not coming in. And that's one little loophole you can close there if you're concerned that did they sit that supervised or not? It'll be noted there that, yes, they did, the type of ID, if there's any issues with it, and the supervisor's initials. And that's so that if you ever need to come back and we need to ask some further questions, we know who did the ID check so that we can reach out to them. Bathroom breaks are recorded. So if that student leaves that room to go to the toilet or back and they talk to our supervisors, they don't orally talk to them, they talk to them via Zoom chat. One-on-one. So they need to send them a message if they need to take a bathroom break and they'll record the time they left and the time they came back. And we prompt them here with anything they need to record that looks suspicious. And they've been instructed on all of this. Like they look like they're accessing unauthorized materials. Camera's disconnected. They go out of that camera view. Someone entered the room. I can tell you some really funny stories of things we've had with people entering the rooms, like mum delivering a baked lunch while the student's sitting their exam. One student who finished their exam and then sculled a beer. One who didn't realise they hadn't turned their camera off and started to get changed. we have some fun stories to come out of these Zoom rooms, but we're watching. Whether the sound's muted, because students must remain in camera view and they must have that camera on and they must not mute themselves. We need to be able to hear if they're talking to someone. They can turn the volume down on their own computer so they don't have to listen to everybody else, but they're the two musts. They must have a microphone and they must have a camera on. If there's someone else, they look like they're using an electronic device. And the prompts for our supervisors are eyes. They watch them. Are they looking sideways a lot? Are they looking down a lot? And while it's not confirmation that there might be any inappropriate behaviour happening, they will note it. And it's a guide for you if you're marking and you think, well, this is really odd. This student all of a sudden is getting everything right and that's not normal behaviour. This is a really good reference point to go, okay, was something noted there? And trust me, the supervisors record pretty much everything that happens if there's anything untoward noises, distractions. Also, if there's incidents as well. So it's not all about, possible misconduct. Sometimes the student might have tech issues where they're dropping in and out and they might be telling you after the exam, I had all these tech issues. Check this, because if it was a supervised exam, it will be recorded there if they were having, internet issues, couldn't log on, or if they rang the 1-800 number to talk to us to get something fixed, it'll be noted on this attendance register as well. We also note if they leave in a suspiciously early time. So if they come in, have their ID check done, and it's a 2 or a 3 hour exam and all of a sudden they're gone in the first half hour, we will note that. And that way you can see, had that student finished? Because you could compare that to the time that the student submitted the exam. So while it's not perfect, we are monitoring as much as we possibly can. It doesn't have to be a closed book exam. I know closed book exams are particularly hard. We do it for open book exams too, because we're looking for, one, do the ID check to make sure that the student is supposed to be sitting the exam sits it, and two, to make sure there's no collusion, to make sure they're not talking to anybody. So, it's all purpose for those supervised online exams. And as I said, they're exploring better options for locking things down. The BYOD exams, which are suitable for on-campus cohorts, it's pretty much the same. We have supervisors in the room, and we go over a ratio. We try to go 1 to 10 with the supervisors in the room and not have more than 30 students in a particular room. We book rooms on campus that have access to power. DFM set them up for us, and the students just go and complete that same online exam, and our supervisors basically patrol the room while the exam is going. So that's the attendance register, and if you haven't seen one before and you're running supervised exams, strongly recommend you use them as a reference point. And as I said, you can also get the recordings. Some quick tips with DXAEs. Mohammed's tip is the best. Create 2 exams when you're creating exams, and then you've got your DXAE done. What some academics will do too is hold off. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a DX or AE, any of those grades. Pop the request in anyway when the portal opens, and then you're done and dusted. We're not going to come chasing you, because we do identify students. We bring the students in according to their grades. So if they've got a DX or AE as grades are released, we bring them into EMS. And if we don't have a corresponding exam request, we will reach out to you. So you've got students in here with a DX or an AE. So we're trying to be proactive. So we pick up as many as we can, because it is such a tight turnaround. Again, name the exams clearly. So it's a DXAE, pop DXAE somewhere in that in the session. No, we don't use org sites anymore for DXAEs. We use the existing subject site, Lachlan. It's brilliant. I know there's issues with Grade Centre not locking down, but from our perspective, it is, and from the students' perspective too, the students used to get awfully lost having to go to an organisation site to find their deferred or additional exam, and now just sits in their subject site, because we can provision a Grade Centre column in there now. So it's huge win with Brightspace, huge, and the students, it's much better for them. And as I said, content should be at least 30% different, but if you're using the online quiz function and you've got question pools and randomised, it should be all fine. We don't check that. It's just a recommendation. And I think, gosh, I think that's enough from me. Any further questions or anything I've missed that you'd like me to cover?
It's a pretty comprehensive breakdown. Lisa, I can see Ali's got a question for you.
Yeah, sorry again, I'm the needy student.
No.
Just to read, you did mention, Lisa, the problem with the lagging in session 1.
Yep.
So that has been ironed out?
I believe so. Dawn Calvert, DLT, and Brightspace have been looking. I don't know that they found the reason.
Right.
It was so random. Like, it happened to a couple of students on Wagga campus.
Yeah.
It would happen to one student in an exam. We couldn't attach to, it wasn't load. Dawn tested, they looked at load. It wasn't load. It wasn't a particular exam or exam type, because it could be one student out of 60 sitting exam, or one student out of 600 sitting that exam would have the issue. It wasn't a browser issue, because we've just run DXAEs and we didn't have any issues. So again, we will touch base again. We're very good now at, if it does happen, and we've done a lot of research, we can see in the submission logs, as soon as the student closes that exam and goes back in, it doesn't happen again. It's really strange, really. It won't happen to them again. So something happens, but their questions save. But yeah, no, we will be absolutely prepared come 60.
Great.
And I need to touch base with Dawn again and make sure,
because we had that problem as well at one of the med campuses about their MCQ choices changing. So what was saved wasn't changing, but because of the lag, they'd go back a question and it wasn't showing them the same answer as before. But
that's the randomization. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's what that would have been, because because the pool is randomized. Well, they might hit one question if they hadn't answered it, because then it'll save. But if then they go back,
I was just wondering if it's best practice for us to, I mean, I know you can change all the settings anyway, but if the lagging is a potential issue, whether we should display more questions per page.
Oh, potentially, Lachlan?
I mean,
what's going to use less bandwidth?
That's the thing.
I guess the other thing as well is, as a safety mechanism, if you're talking about the refresh, maybe substituting other questions or changing the question set. Does having one per page or multiple per page mitigate that in any way? I don't know. I would have thought more per page would use less bandwidth, just off the top of my head, like it would, like in terms of at scale. a whole bunch of students at the same time progressing through it, but that's not backed up by any evidence or anything. It's just me riffing at that point.
I guess if the lagging is an issue, every time they press next, they're pressing next fewer times, so they're losing. That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, we'll just take your advice if you.
We've got micro-session exams coming up in 2 weeks' time, so we were watching closely to see it. It was really strange. It seemed to be about 20, 25 minutes in. One student, it would freeze. They'd close the exam, just close the tab and go straight back in and not have another problem. It did start a second session. We could see that. So session 1 had closed and they were in session 2 of that exam. So it was the second, like they'd come in the second time, and then it was fine. It stopped. It was just, I don't know. But all eyes are on it. Trust me, I've fed it through everything that we possibly can. And Dawn has been working very closely with Brightspace.
Just a question in there about publishing and visibility of results and things to students that was being asked. You might want to weigh in on that one, Lisa, but my understanding was that when you were setting your start and finish date and times, you're also hiding the portal following the conclusion as well as the gradebook column. Is that still correct?
We actually don't physically go back in and hide the DXAE, the little widget. We hide the grade centre column, absolutely, so students can't see their results. But the exam will disappear because it will have lapsed, so they won't have access to the exam. But the actual content widget, which has nothing in it, basically, once that exam's gone, just the information, it can stay there. They can't see anything, no results, nothing. The availability of the link for that exam will have gone.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, like normally it's the submission portal, so where the quiz is or where the assignment is, for example, that sends the notification and provides access to results from the front end rather than the gradebook. But if you're hiding that at that close time, for example, and there's no access to it because all you've got is a link in the content pages, right?
Yep.
So they shouldn't be able to get access to those results either way.
No. Shouldn't. The grade centre column's the most important one. And we don't tick anything around when we do the exam setup. We don't tick any of those boxes to display results or anything like that. We leave all of that not ticked. And we haven't had any reports, unless someone has, we haven't had any reports of students seeing results with our current practice.
When, if ever, do we display the exam results? Is Rebecca's question.
That is really up to the academic, really. I'm not quite sure why they don't release exam results to students. It tends to be because it's at the end of the session and the students get their grade. But I don't believe there's anything in policy and procedure that says you can't release the exam marks to a student if you chose to. By rights, the student could ask for it too, because if they go for a review of grade, because they're not happy with their grade, they're going to ask for the exam results if that's what they think marked them down. But yeah, I think that's just a practice that's in-house for CSU.
Usually to do with the timing period, as you said. If you've hit the exam period and you're already past the in-class period of time, for example, and then you're dealing with obviously your turnaround time with SAC and everything else and finishing up your processes, then the idea of marking turnaround time and feedback and all the rest of it, you've already missed those windows. So it's, as you said, it's probably we've just gotten into the practice of there isn't enough time for that to happen. But yeah, great question.
We hide it too, because if you've got multiple choice, it'll self-mark and the student will get half an exam result, because if it's short answers, they're potentially not marked at that point. So it's not really indicative of their final mark.
Yeah, Kathleen's just raised there that if on request, the students are allowed to get access to their results.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very interesting. All right.
Yeah,
well,
look, I think Kathleen's right. Each school has their own process around whether they let students voluntarily see exam results or not.
Absolutely, and I'd be asking, in school anyway, to see what their take on it was. Look, we're at time, so I think I'm going to call it there and say a big thank you on behalf of the rest of the audience here today, Lisa, for sharing your wisdom in this space. This is the first time that I've actually had a comprehensive sort of explanation provided around exam workflows and processes. So I haven't specifically gone looking for them, but I think it's been a wonderful session. So thank you very much. For my part, the recording and the artifacts, the slide deck and things will make available shortly through the Teaching Academy events tab. And we look forward to seeing you all at another one. Thanks very much, everyone, and have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.